Hello and welcome to the very first guest interview for Yogamona. For those of you who don't know me so well, I'm Simone. I'm the founder of Yogamona. Some of you will know me a little better from my work in coaching, meditation classes, my workshops that I run, and also my Soulful Goals Facebook community. So today is the very first guest interview. I wanted to offer some increased value and content to the community, particularly for the members of the Soulful Goals community, where we talk a lot about this particular topic today, which is sabotage. And today I have a very special guest, Georgie Beames, on. So a very big welcome and thank you. I'll be talking a little bit more about what I do. We'll also be introducing Georgie and some of the work that she's doing with her female clients as well. And of course, we'll be talking a lot more about sabotage, which is something that comes up for all of us in life. So just quickly, for those of you who don't know me, that may be listening to me for the first time, perhaps you joined my community because you wanted to buy some really funky yoga leggings, but I'm Simone. I'm an occupational therapist and also a coach. I'm a desire map facilitator, and I work predominantly with women who are feeling stuck, anxious, overwhelmed, burnt out, really women that are seeking more and seeking more joy from life. I work a lot around self-love, mindfulness, meditation, and helping facilitate women to reach their full potential. And today I wanted to introduce Georgie. Georgie Beames is a psychologist who works exclusively with women around emotional eating and food issues, I guess, Georgie. Georgie and I basically met at a workshop where I was leading a meditation. It was a social media workshop, so we both have our own businesses, and we really connected in this particular workshop. Georgie is a big fan of yoga, particularly yin yoga, and a lot of the work that she does with her clients also around topics like mindfulness, using a lot of tools around mindfulness, self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and obviously sabotage is a huge issue that comes up for her clients, particularly around food. So I really wanted to get Georgie on. I think she's a wealth of knowledge. I absolutely adore some of the conversations we have around why we do what we do and perhaps why we don't do what we know can help us in our journey. And you know, Georgie is also part of the Soulful Goals community. Georgie participated in the Soulful Goals Challenge earlier in the year and has come to a Desire Map workshop. And I have most recently participated in Georgie's 5-day food freedom challenge, which was fantastic. And that's where we started thinking about, well, perhaps actually my community, my Yogamona community and the Soulful Goals community would find a lot of benefit from hearing from Georgie a bit more about sabotage in general. And Georgie is also the founder of the online food freedom program, and it's launching, I believe, on Monday. So towards the end of the interview, I'm really, really keen for Georgie to share more information about her program. I think there would be a number of people in the Yogamona community who may also have challenges with food. And if that's the case, Georgie is definitely your girl. So I look forward to talking a little bit about your program at the end of the interview as well. But first, Georgie, did you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps your journey and how you came to work with women around food?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm sort of very open about my journey as well. I think sometimes, you know, being a sort of psychologist, you know, we can sort of put the walls up and be that sort of professional persona and I've got everything all sorted and there's no issues here. But I like to kind of keep it real because I think my story can really help other women's stories and their journeys as well. So for me, I grew up and was bullied by my older sister. So it was around that really awkward age of around, you know, like 13, 14 as a teenager growing up. And she would tell me sort of on a daily basis, you're fat and you're ugly and kind of like, you know, humiliate me in public. And it was a really awful time for me. And that sort of, you know, conversation and the bullying just really sort of stuck with me, and I sort of started to form some beliefs about myself. And I put on a lot of weight after I finished uni, and I did the obligatory kind of, you know, London working holiday and got that Heathrow injection. And I just, and I just never was able to sort of shift the weight. So I was probably an extra 15 kilo or 20 kilos heavier than what I am today. And I tried every single diet available, every single exercise fad, and I just sort of couldn't sort of shift the weight. And also I was a bit of a late bloomer, and I was sort of single for sort of most of my 20s and sort of out on a few dates here and there. But I very much was the queen of self-sabotage in my 20s. And I really blamed my body for not finding love. And I was using my body as a scapegoat, because I thought, well, you know, I don't like myself the way that I look. How can I accept myself the way I look? So how could I expect someone else to accept myself? So I kind of hung on to a lot of these limiting beliefs. And I had a bit of a meltdown, as you do with these milestones, sort of turning 30. And I went to see a psychologist myself, because I sort of thought, you know, like, I need to walk my talk a bit here and work on some of my own stuff. And I spent quite a number of years in therapy and did a lot of work on the inside. And looked at my limiting beliefs, looked at my self-sabotage, my emotional eating. And I really transformed the relationship that I had with my body and with myself, and really kind of freed myself of, you know, that food obsession and weight obsession that was really holding me back. And as a result, I sort of really got into this area and practicing as a psychologist. So I work in a private practice, and I also have my online program, the Online Freedom Program. So I sort of have my strategies in the online program to make it more accessible for women, because I think it's really, really important work, and I see that women look in the wrong places. So that's a little bit about my journey, and I just love this area. I love psychology. I love mindset work, and I think it's just so incredibly powerful. And I think we're often looking for the externals to, you know, fix us, and I think really all the answers lie within.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. It sounds like your journey has really shaped the work that you do, and you can really now share firsthand what you've found to work for you. And that's amazing. Yeah.
That's it. And I think that's important, working in an area, because I can relate on a professional sense and got the expertise, but also more importantly, the personal side, that I can really relate to where women are at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today the interview is really all about sabotage for a few reasons. I think, you know, personally it comes up, you know, all the time for me, and it's something that I've constantly been working on as well. And I certainly have my own strategies and tips that I share with my clients. It's something that's come up with my clients, or for my clients, regularly. You know, almost every session at some point we're touching on some form of sabotage that may have come up in what it is they're trying to achieve. And whether that's, you know, they're wanting to establish a regular meditation practice or a regular self-love practice, or, you know, things might be going well and then they're like, but I'm back in this same place again. So I'd love to talk a little bit about what sabotage is first of all, and perhaps in your experience how it shows up for people, you know, the different ways that it might show up.
Sure. So sabotage is all about engaging with behaviour that really takes us off our path. So it's really behaviour when we're behaving in a way that's unlike the person that we want to be. And there's a great quote that I want to read, which I think personifies sabotage, which is when we want something and then we go about making sure that it doesn't happen. Yeah. And I think we can all sort of really relate. I think that really sums up self-sabotage really well. So the way I explain it is that we have our conscious mind, and which is, if we think about that, you know, we all know that iceberg analogy, which is, you know, 10% of what we see is our conscious mind. Yeah. And this is sort of where our logic comes in. So if we're looking at, say, an eating example, or even sort of, you know, attending a yoga class, this is the logic mind that says, you know, I know what I should and shouldn't be eating, and I should be eating this and I shouldn't be eating that. With a yoga class, I know I should be attending and, you know, not sitting on the couch binge watching on Netflix, right? But then there's this subconscious part of us as well. And that's really that hidden part in the iceberg analogy. So, and this makes up 90% of who we are. And so often when there's self-sabotage, there's conflict with these two parts. And what I tend to find is when there's conflict, it's always that subconscious part that will always win. Yeah. And so that's sort of the way that I sort of particularly sort of see it playing out. And I see it playing out in a couple of different scenarios. The first is when we try to make a really positive change in our life. So this, from an eating perspective, is when, you know, you make a commitment to, you know, eat in a healthy way, or start sort of that exercise routine. Or maybe from the yoga example, it might be I might commit to a practice, and a regular practice, and a consistent practice.
Or join a studio for the first time, for example. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I sort of see that playing out. And how I explain it is, we are a sum of our parts. So we've all got different parts that make us whole. And when we start to engage in new, positive, you know, healthy behaviors, there's a part of us, and I sort of explain it sort of with my hands, and there's a part of us that really is committed to change and really, really wants the best for us. But then there's another part that kind of has the brakes on, and it wants us to stay stuck. And really its purpose is to keep us safe, and it loves that old habitual way. So this is a part of us that, you know, comes home and eats when the TV's on at night after dinner. Or it's the part of us that, you know, opens a bottle of wine, you know, on a Saturday night. And so, you know, it's important when we start to look at our change that this resistance and this part is always going to be there. And what I find with many women that I work with is that this happens to all of us, but those that are most successful in terms of continuing with these healthy behaviour chains are the ones that acknowledge the resistance but keep going regardless. Yeah? When we get stuck here and we start to buy into that conversation around, oh, come on, you've worked really hard today, have the chocolate, or, oh, it's been a tough day, you know, I think you should stay in and not go to the class, or whatever's that conversation might be going on for you.
You're too tired. Give yourself a break.
Yeah, you deserve this. Yeah. And when you buy into it, this is where you stay stuck, and this is where the sort of self-sabotage comes in. So we know what we should be doing, but there's this other part that just kind of overrides it. The other part as well that I see when sabotage kicks in, so not only when we start something, but also when something goes well for us. So, for instance, again, from an eating perspective, I see this with so many clients, is when they start to lose weight and feel good, they can start self-sabotaging by eating again. Or when they get really positive feedback or compliments from others that they look good or things are going well, they can turn to the food.
Wow.
Yeah. So that can really play out. And this can be all around, there's stuff going on at that subconscious level that's overriding sort of the conscious side, whether that's around, you know, I see, for instance, you know, single women who have had weight on as protection for so many years, and it's actually, the purpose is a bit of a buffer to stay single from, you know, avoiding intimacy. All of a sudden they start losing the weight and they don't have that same protection, or they start to get to their ideal weight. Everyone's saying, are you going to start dating? Where are you at? And then next minute start eating again and the weight comes on. And that's just sort of one example of how this might play out. Another one is a project. So, and I've sort of experienced this, you know, at the end of, I've spent 9 years at university, right? And I've experienced this right when you're so close to, you know, getting that degree or achieving that goal, or that hard to get to. And right at the last minute, you just want to throw in the towel.
Yeah. So getting quite close to completion as well. So
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. And so there's obviously something going on around, you know, maybe there's a part of you that feels like you don't deserve it, or you can't have it at all, or you don't deserve to be successful or happy, or whatever it might be. That's the subconscious part that's really in the driver's seat.
Yeah, you never finish. You know, you're not going to get there. Who do you think you are?
That's it. So we'll put the brakes on because that's safer. Yeah, than you achieving that, because we don't know where you can go once you achieve anything.
Yeah, like the fear of the unknown and possibility.
Yeah, and that's a little bit risky. It's a little bit too much, and it can't be too much.
The subconscious wants to bring everything back down. Yeah, right. And keep us safe.
that these are parts of us. And I think with sabotage, where we can really trip ourselves up is we believe it, we buy into it, and we think that it's really us.
Yes, and that it's all of us. Actually, we mustn't be good enough, and we'll never get there. We'll never lose the weight, or we'll never find true happiness, or we'll never find the partner, or we'll never, beat the anxiety, or whatever it might be.
Yes.
And that's when we start to buy into that. That's 100% who we are, which is actually not correct.
Definitely.
Fantastic. And so just to recap, because I think that's really beautiful that you, and certainly I see it with my clients as well. At the start of the journey, it tends to come up quite a lot. Midway through, when things are going really well, the sabotage creeps in to trip us up. And then again, particularly towards the end of completion, or I don't know about you, but I also sometimes find that if you've done something and you've achieved a goal, you kind of get this and a lot of people in business call it, you hit the upper limit.
Yes.
And it's for example, I've just come back from running a Bali retreat, and I think it was just amazing. It was fantastic. The feedback was amazing. All of the guests that came along just said it exceeded their expectations. And I've kind of come back and noticed that, I'm not so consistent in my business at the moment. It's and I'm sure there's a little bit of sabotage there that's going, do you really deserve that success in your business? So I think, it's great to see that it can pop up at lots of different points in the journey.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that, I've done a lot of work on myself, right? And I, continue to do that, and I I enjoy that part. But I experienced self-sabotage recently. So with my business, it's all going really, really well. And I booked in a professional photo shoot, which was, a bit of an investment in my business. But it was more so around a higher visibility, because I've got plans for what to do with these photos on social media and branding, etc. So it's really going to take my business to the next level. Yes. And then what I found is that the self-sabotage was more subconscious that kicked in. So it's not something I picked up immediately, but because of the work I've done, I picked it up a lot sooner than what I might have in the past. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed it, because my default is eating, right? That's a bit of a flag for me when I go back to this old behaviour, habitual behaviour, that there's something else going on. It's actually got nothing to do with the food.
Yes.
And so what I found is that I started to eat and kind of get a bit of I call it out of control with the food. You're either in control dieting, or you're out of control eating everything in sight. It's one or the other. So I started to get back into this out of control side, and I picked it up in a few days and thought, what's really going on here? And it was all around my success beliefs, limiting beliefs, and there was definitely self-sabotage going on. So I could pick it up and realign it pretty quickly because I've got the tools to do it. But my point is that it's always going to be there. So it's around having the right strategies to manage it.
Yes. And I was going to ask, I'm sure a lot of people watching, and particularly some of the community in the Soulful Goals Facebook group, I'm sure a lot of people are in their mind going, does this ever go away? And my understanding is no, it doesn't. But you can get better at managing it and become more aware about picking up the signs, like you said, so that you can get on top of it earlier, and that you've got the right tools and supports around you to move through, so that you're not letting it limit you. You're not letting it stop you from, whether it's a weight goal, whether it's a lifestyle goal, a relationship goal, whatever it might be, or a yoga goal, for example.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's the key, is that, self-sabotage starts to take you off your path, but it's picking it up early and then realigning it back.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, you talk about 3 different types of saboteurs. I'd love you to talk a bit more about saboteurs. Yeah, I'd love you to talk and share a little bit about that, because I think that's, again, really insightful for people that perhaps maybe just starting to learn about what sabotage is and starting to become more aware about their own patterns of sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that I go into in my program, and I've got a process around this. So there's 3 saboteurs, and this is I'll use some examples with eating, because that's most of my examples with my
great.
in my area. So the first one is the minimizer saboteur. So this is the part of us that wants to says things like, you can't be too successful, or you can't be too beautiful, or you can't be too slim, whatever that might be to you. So it's about like keeping you small, keeping you contained. So don't shine, don't be too powerful, don't have too much money. It's that sort of conversation and dialogue coming up. The second one is the rebel, and the rebel's like really my favorite one, because the rebel always comes up for me. And this is the one that sort of says, particularly around eating, come on, I'm calling you. You know you want me. You know what you want, the whole block of chocolate. It's the one that just is that childlike qualities, but there's no responsibility and there's no consequences. Mm-hmm. So this might be, in another example with the yoga, this might be around, just stay, you don't need to go to yoga. Let's just watch the Netflix, or let's, it's that type of, dialogue coming out. And then the third one is the victim. So this is very much the one that's powerless and helpless and poor me, and I can't help this. So, I can't help who I am. I can't change. So I'll just keep engaging in this sabotaging behavior. Now, with these three parts, they all have a good purpose. So an example is with the rebel. The good purpose is it's the childlike, playful, fun side in us, yeah? But when the behavior takes us off our path, it becomes a saboteur. So what I recommend we start doing is labeling our saboteurs. So when that voice comes up, so when, you get home from work and then the voice says, come on, open the fridge, have some cheese, have the crackers, have the chocolate, whatever. That's when you want to sort of call it out and say, there's a rebel. Or, there's the victim. Or even, there's the critic is another one I know that you speak a lot about as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so do you see that people will have sometimes all of those three saboteurs, or some of them are more strong than others?
I think there can be a combination. Yeah. So I found that with some women, it's, they're all pretty strong, or maybe two are stronger than the third. And then with others, one is like particularly sort of the strong one, and the other two are kind of there, just popping up now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you make the valid point. Often with my clients, I talk around the inner critic rather than necessarily naming them as one or the other. But I think it's really nice to have that. It's almost like you get a visual of that inner critic, and it's like, the rebels come out to play. Okay, I can relate to that. I know it. I know that one well. This is what I need to do to overcome it. So tell me, or share with us a little bit about, I use a number of different strategies. Some of them, obviously starts with awareness, noticing that the sabotaging behavior has come into play is a big part of it. And for some people, they're not aware of that in the first place. So a lot of the work I tend to do is around awareness and mindfulness, and noticing it and then trying to clear it through it. Do you have specific tips that you swear by that, these women that are struggling with food just go, oh my God, Georgie, thank you?
Yeah. So there's three things: notice, name, redirect. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So the first part is noticing it. So, we've just gone through an awareness piece here. Yeah. So notice the dialogue that comes up. So when that voice comes up, notice it. Name it. There's the rebel. Yeah. And when we're at that naming stage, I just want to talk about one of the strategies I use, which is called diffusion. So what typically happens is we're what they call fused with the dialogue from the saboteur. And this is, you're fused with something when the voice comes up. And by the way, these voices are all very normal and natural.
Yeah. We can talk about the voices, a little more.
Just need to sort of, normalize that one. So the voice comes up, and then you hear it as a command or a demand. Yeah. So when that voice comes up and says, go and grab the fruit and nut family-sized block of chocolate, and you hear it as a command, you know that you've fused with it. Then when you're fused with the dialogue or this part of you, you give it way too much power. So this part of you is in the driver's seat, and in fact, it should be in the passenger seat. So one way to diffuse it is to it is part of that notice a name, but to put the words "I'm having a thought" in front of the dialogue. So let's just say the dialogue was, eat the chocolate. You might then say, I'm having a thought that I want to eat the chocolate. And all of a sudden, eat the chocolate versus I'm having a thought that I want to eat the chocolate has two different intentions. There's a lot of power, and this is a command. This loses its power, and all of a sudden, it's just a thought. Now, we have a choice then. When we defuse, we have a choice of whether we buy into it or not. Over here, we don't have a choice. We obey it. Yeah? We just go straight for the
blindly. Yeah.
That's it. Another diffusion strategy is just to put the words out in front of us, so we can kind of see it in front of us, like as if you're sitting down on a beautiful sort of, river, and then there's leaves going down a stream. Yeah. So you can see the words, eat the chocolate, just go by. Eat the chocolate, go by. Eat the chocolate, go by. So part of diffusion is trying to sort of put these things outside of you, take them from in here where they're sort of very, very powerful. We hear it as a command to, they're just words floating down the stream. I've got a choice now whether I buy into them or not. So once you do that, notice name, and part of that naming is the diffusion, you redirect. So then what you do is you put what I call your core self back in the driver's seat. So this is a part that I just explained at the beginning, which is the part that wants the best for you. This is the real you, not the part that's sabotaging you. That's not the real you. So, and you might redirect in accordance with your values. So, for instance, it might be, going for a walk, or it could be, reading a book or turning the TV off, or whatever that might be for you. But you're redirecting into some behavior that is very much in alignment with the person that you want to be. Whereas when we're engaging in the sabotage behavior and we're buying into it, we're behaving in a way that's unlike the person we want to be. So that's a big distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, really interesting. And I think that as you're talking this through, it really resonates with me, because I do a lot of similar work, but probably don't use the same terms as you, but talk a lot around the mindfulness. So noticing the thought, you are not your thoughts. And particularly even with my meditation classes as well, we talk a lot around, the benefits of meditating and mindfulness, because it allows us to increase our awareness of what that subconscious mind is telling us.
Yes.
And often we don't know if we don't stop to just notice the thoughts, to acknowledge that they're there, but to not actually, allow them to be, who you are. We are so much more than our thoughts. So let's talk a little bit. I'm keen to talk about, unless you've got any other strategies that you're really busting to share with us.
They're my best three.
Perfect. They're very similar to what I use as well with clients. So the other thing I'd like to touch on is about the inner critic. So we touched on before, hopefully people aren't getting concerned about the fact that we're talking about these thoughts. Everyone has them. So, when you're talking to your clients, how do you sort of introduce this concept of the inner critic, or some people may call it the ego or the subconscious mind? Tell us a little bit around that. You talked about the fact that, the iceberg, the 10% is the conscious mind and the 90% is sort of underneath that we're not perhaps always aware of, which is the subconscious. Do you have any more thoughts around, I guess, the inner critic, or any comments to share? I mean, I talk a lot with clients about, it can be beneficial. It's not essential, but it can be beneficial to just notice where they might come from.
Definitely. And I sort of see the inner critic as what I call an internalized parent. So I tend to find, I see a very much a correlation, particularly with eating, if there has been a controlling parent that you've grown up with. And this controlling parent has pretty much, told you exactly, what to do, when to do it, very strict, but also being quite critical as well. So if we've grown up with, our parents having these conversations and role modeling this and observing this, then what happens is as we continue to grow, we internalize these voices, and then it's almost like they become our own. So we sort of internalize, the critical voice that we've heard growing up. So that's sort of where I sort of see the origins of the critic. And then I just pretty much treat it in the same way as the saboteur, around the notice, the name, the redirect, and those type of strategies. So you're not giving it so much power, because the critic can really make you feel pretty crappy about yourself as well.
Absolutely, if we listen to it. And I think Yeah, and I think a lot of my clients, and I think a lot of women that we're both meeting in our work, may kind of get to that point of, they're starting to just go, well, what's going on? Because they have perhaps paid so much attention to that inner critic and not realize actually that inner critic is really normal. We all have it.
That's right.
It's about getting to understand what it is there for, and it is often there to keep us safe. It's often from, authority figures like our parents, but it could also be school teachers.
That's right.
Siblings that bully you. It could also be the media. I mean, we're sent so many messages around how to think and what to believe. You have to be a certain size to feel good and to be popular and beautiful. You have to, and I know certainly in the yoga industry as well, looking at Instagram and seeing all these beautiful women doing all these fancy poses is starting to, for some people, if you're not aware of the inner critic and the effect of different messages that are coming through, we could soon start to believe that, actually only skinny, bendy people do yoga. And so it's noticing, if you're doing, whether it's practicing yoga or whether it's, you're eating, that getting an idea about where the inner critic may be coming from and actually what it does and how it serves us or doesn't serve us is really helpful. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's where self-compassion and self-acceptance can really play a role. Yes, noticing the inner critic and that voice, and then coming back to sort of that self-compassion, sort of self-acceptance. Because I think what I found to be the most powerful in my own transformation, as well as all the women that I work with, is around accepting yourself as you are now, rather than waiting until you get there, whatever that means for you. So whether that's a certain size or, certain fantasy that you have in your head about how your life should be, around that self-acceptance now.
Yeah, no, I would agree as well. A number of clients as well with the same journey, they may come to me thinking that, when they get that job or that husband or the partner or the children or the career or the their own business, that then they will feel happy and they'll love themselves. But actually it's about the journey and using these skills to actually find happiness and joy and peace, inner peace now, isn't it?
As you are now. Exactly right.
Absolutely.
Game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Any last minute, words of wisdom on sabotage? What would your 3 tips be? Are they recognize the name?
Yeah, I think just to sum up, I'd say just see it as a part of you, not the whole you. Try to even put it outside of you. So one thing I find really helpful is, if it's your minimizer, saboteur, or your critic, or your rebel, or your victim, see it sort of out in front of you and see it as like a little maybe cartoon character or a little version of you, or, have some fun with it as well. And so when you've got sort of the visuals, it's like, there's that rebel again. There's, the little devil horns or, whatever that might be. So you start to see it that it's actually, you provide that disconnection when it's outside of you. You don't buy into it so much. We all have it. We can't get rid of it. It's very normal. So you just need some of these strategies, and it's the consistency as well to keep coming back and that awareness and sort of keep moving forward with these strategies, and you will notice a difference.
And just it sort of reminded me of some of the work that I do with clients, and particularly what's been quite helpful in my own journey, but also in the Soulful Goals Challenge. How clear is it to get a really clear picture of your vision when you're feeling like sabotage perhaps is stopping you and holding you back?
I think it's very hard to get a clear picture.
Yeah, it can be.
That resistance sort of kicks in, the part that's sort of got the brakes on. And I find that working with, a few clients, not all of them, but they really have trouble sort of seeing how they want to look. After they sort of lose the weight, they can't sort of really connect with who they want to be and what that sort of ideal version of themselves looks like. So if you don't have that vision, it's very hard to get there.
Yes. So the vision can help, but at the same time, if you're stuck in sabotage and perhaps, procrastination or feeling stuck in this place you don't want to be, it can be really hard in that place to see a vision of where you want to go.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's resistance. If you can't see it, that's resistance 101.
Yeah, right. And in that space, when someone's in resistance, they're just not feeling like they can progress, they're really stuck where they're at. What would you suggest in that particular time, other than the naming and the processes we've talked about? Is there anything else that you found when you're really stuck that helps?
Well, I think it's fear-based. And I think what happens is there's a lot going on up here. So what I sort of suggest with clients is, and this is where the mindfulness sort of comes back in, is just strategies to get back into your body, into the present moment, because all of that is going on up here, which is future-oriented.
Yes.
And, you know, it's all around anticipation, and it can produce a lot of anxiety as well.
Yes.
So you just want to, you know, have strategies to come back to your body, more that mindfulness process.
Yes.
You know, go to a yoga class, whatever that is for you.
Yes. Moving, dancing, singing, just shifting your energy.
I always say, when you feel stuck, always come back to the body.
Yeah, beautiful.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's certainly something that I talk about as well with clients. You know, if you're too up in this, you know, in your head, it's time to move the body or to come into the body in whatever way it might be.
And that's that can be resistance too, when you're too much up here, living your life up here.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to finish off by getting you to share a little bit more about your program, because I know it's starting in a couple of days.
Starting on Monday.
Wow, Monday. And I've been really, you know, as I said, I wouldn't say I'm an emotional eater. I certainly can be. I've been very fortunate in that I haven't personally struggled with my weight, but I do have some things, which is why I went into the challenge with you. I did have some things that I wanted to look at, which is, you know, I have, and I think you call it, I can't recall the name of it now, where, you know, I can't leave anything on the plate, clean plate syndrome or something like that.
Clean plate club.
Clean plate club. You know, I was raised, you know, not to leave the table until I was finished my meal. And so what I guess that's how that's resulted for us, and probably all of our family, has been that I don't think any of us really like to leave anything on our plates. So regardless of whether I'm hungry or not, I will eat everything on my plate, particularly if I've paid good money for it out for dinner. And that's translated sometimes over the years when I'm disconnected from my body. To a lot of overeating, so really large portion sizes. Now, as I said, I'm blessed that I haven't necessarily put on weight as a result of that, but it was certainly something I was really keen to get more awareness on from your 5-day challenge, and it was fantastic. It really just showed me, okay, yes, that's why I do that, and learning some of the techniques like you've talked us through today, plus implementing mindfulness is so important as well with food. It's just started to become a little bit more easier for me to not only stop and think when that happens, and when I'm engaging in that behavior, you know, subconsciously it's just happening, I'm able to stop and be a little bit more conscious about what's going on and start to change that behavior and pattern. So I've absolutely loved the challenge, and I know that there are many women in the challenge that have gone on to do your program and that need a little bit more of a deep work. So I would love you to share a little bit about what the Online Freedom Program is, how it can help people, who is it for, and whatever you'd like to share about the program with us.
No problems. So basically, because I work in my private practice, and I've been doing that for a number of years now, exclusively in the area of emotional eating, self-sabotage, sort of around weight and eating and limiting beliefs. So I've just taken the best of my processes that I know really work, and the women have seen great results, and I've put this into an online program so it's much more accessible to many more women, because what I've found is this space in terms of the emotional eating and self-sabotage with food and weight, it is quite a specialist area. So it's good to have, I've had feedback from clients that have gone to see other professionals, but then they've really appreciated that sort of expertise in this particular area. So it's there's 4 modules in the Online Freedom Program, and it's basically for women who have struggled their whole life or most of their life with food and their weight, and they've really got that food obsession. So this is where you're sort of really in your head thinking about the food 24/7, planning it out, what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat, and thinking that you have to be sort of in control to lose the weight. So restricting, weighing yourself, running app, whatever that might be.
Yo-yo dieters.
Yo-yo dieters. But then the minute we get in control, we end up being out of control, which is, that sort of on the couch, Netflix on, Yeah, that's right.
And then beating ourselves up afterwards.
That's exactly it. Exactly. So I see emotional eating, it's got nothing to do with food. It's all an inside job. But often we're looking for external strategies, whether that's dieting, whether that's exercise, sort of fads that promise, boot camp, whatever it might be, or even surgery. So I work with many women who have gone through bariatric surgery as well, but really using external strategies for internal challenges.
Yeah, and that's lap band surgery when you say bariatric surgery.
Oh, there's like 4 different options.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like some of it includes getting 2/3 of your stomach cut out.
Wow.
And these women have done this and lost a lot of weight, and then the self-sabotage will kick in because there's other stuff being triggered at a subconscious level that they haven't dealt with. It is an inside job. Like, you're eating for a reason.
Yeah. And look, that's why I guess I'm such a big fan and big supporter of yours, because I think that in all areas of our life, it's an inside job, whether it's depression, anxiety, toxic relationships, low self-esteem, or, you're unhappy in your career, whatever it might be. I think it is, and I think that slowly the world's starting to wake up and see that it is an inside job, and not being so reliant on some of these quick fixes and gadgets that promise, the world. It does take time to do that inner work, to actually work through some of these subconscious beliefs that are driving our behavior. Yeah.
But once you start on the journey, you've got these skills for life, and I've seen my life completely transform since I've done the inside work, and the women I work with. So I know how powerful it is, but there's work involved. So that's why sometimes, we look for these quick fixes. We might get some short-term results, but not long-term, because we haven't dealt with the underlying issues.
Yes.
But basically with the program, so it's starting from, women who are feeling sort of stuck and frustrated and really obsessed with food and kind of almost like in a body jail. So I certainly know what that feels like. Take them, on a step-by-step transformation to get to their sort of desired ideal self, which is all around feeling free and empowered, stepping into your personal power, trusting yourself, and sort of being unstoppable, which has, benefits for every single area of your life, not just your relationship with food and your body, and just kind of actually starting to live life, getting out of here and getting out of that food obsession, and just starting to really live life, enjoy it, self-acceptance, being okay with who you are right now. And we haven't really been given the tools to do that. We've been told to go to external fixes, buy this and
do this diet and this diet
or whatever it might be. Yeah. So, and I always say, the Online Freedom Program is the new sexy, because there's nothing sexier for a woman than feeling great in her own skin. Absolutely.
And how freeing that is. Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. It changes your life. It actually changes, and your relationships as well.
I imagine. And I think that the work that you do with these women as well is quite highly translatable to, or transferable. The skills are transferable to other areas of their life if sabotage is showing up in other areas as well.
Career, relationships.
Yeah. And the community too. Like, I've been blown away by the community just in the free challenge that you've run. So what would they expect from the community in your program?
Well, me.
Of course.
Yeah. So basically, when women sign up for the program, they get a course lifetime access to the program, as well as to the community. So this is a closed Facebook community. So none of your friends and family can sort of see what's going on, because I find there's a lot of shame and something that we kind of hide as well. And I sort of, part of the program is working with like-minded women and with myself to kind of take the mask off and let's sort of talk about what's going on, because, it's so freeing to hear someone else or read someone else is going through exactly the same things, but just to normalize it for us, where before we're trying to sort of like pretend it's not an issue and kind of deal with it ourselves. And that's a lot to take on. So, with the community, it's access to me, access to other like-minded women. So you can sort of come in and check in and get that support that you need and share insights, ask for help, put your hand up, because support, you can't do this alone, this work. Like, support is so critical.
Yeah, beautiful. So online freedom program starts Monday.
Monday. Yep.
And I believe you have a special offer for the Yogamona community.
Just for your community.
Thank you.
So I'm offering $100 off the program before Monday, and I know that's not a lot of time for some of you, and I totally understand that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'll get Simone to post the link. So there's some more information that you can read on exactly, a bit more on me, a bit more on the program, how it works, and then I'll be giving you a special link to get that $100 off. So that starts on Monday, and I've got flexible payment plans in there as well. So if this kind of you know, calls out to you or resonates with you, and you sort of say, you know what, we're coming up to that chaotic Christmas time, because that can also kind of, you know, trigger us with our eating, and we're sort of out a lot and so forth. So if you want some of those strategies before Christmas, now's the time to sort of jump on board with the program. But if you're not ready to do that, I'm also going to offer the 5-day free Food Freedom Challenge, which is what Simone just recently went through. We're going to kick that off in January. So there's still another opportunity to look at the program next year in February. Prices will increase next year, but there's an option there if it's just not the right time for you right now.
Yeah, and look, as I said, you know, I wouldn't have thought that I had huge emotional eating issues, but I benefited so much from even just the 5-day challenge.
Yeah, that's great.
All women, you know, would benefit from doing the 5-day challenge. If you have any sort of any kind of little niggles around food and your behavior with food, I think the 5-day challenge is a perfect starting point. But if you're like nodding your head going, I'm such an emotional eater, then head on over. Now your website, Georgie, is?
Well, what I'll do is send you
the link.
And I think if we post it in, I think that's just going to be the easiest, because I'll put the special offer in the link, so we can go straight there and make it really easy.
Let's do that. And I'll also pop Georgie's email address if you've got specific questions you want to reach out to her.
Totally.
And also, I guess to finish off the session today, or the interview today, I would just like to ask, you know, a couple of questions to ask yourself, actually. You know, where is sabotage showing up for you right now? And it may not be to do with eating, it may be to do with your yoga practice or your meditation practice, it may be to do with your relationships, or perhaps, you know that you're unhappy in your career and you keep procrastinating or feeling stuck and you're not taking action. So where perhaps is sabotage showing up for you is the first question. The second one is, you know, can you relate to any of the saboteurs that we've spoken about today, the rebel, the victim, the critic, and the minimizer? So I think it's really nice to just see or identify, you know, is there one that you really resonate with? You know, that victim that says, oh, you know, don't, you know, poor you, you know, don't worry about going to yoga tonight. You're so exhausted. You deserve to stay at home on the couch and eat your block of chocolate. So, you know, they're probably the two questions. Do you have anything else you want to leave the community with?
Perfect.
Yeah. And I will be rerunning my Soulful Goals Challenge, which is all around looking at what it is that you do want in life. I'll be rerunning that next year as well. So I also have a Facebook group called Soulful Goals. You're welcome to come across into that group. I hope that this is the first of many guest interviews. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. And I just want to thank Georgie so much for coming on. We've become quite good business buddies, and just really, really resonate with her message, and think that, you know, all women should deserve freedom in life, and particularly the group that you work with. I think, you know, just seeing some of the transformation in your Facebook group from the challenge alone, it's opened my eyes up to how big an issue emotional eating is, and also body image. You know, there's a lot of there's movements out there now, you know, around body image as well, and I think it's all intertwined. And I think that women in general are starting to wake up and to really see that we are responsible for our own healing and for our own happiness, and it is an inside job. So yeah, I love your work. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
See you later. Bye.